Hey friends, it's time again for Once More with Feelings. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Beth. We are a emotional journey podcast in which we watch films, we talk about them, we tell you how we feel. Not just about the films, we're not reviewing, but we are going to talk about how those movies made us feel.
This week, y'all, this is my favorite movie. This is up there, okay? I have a lot of favorite movies, but this movie is definitely up there. I don't know if y'all were able to guess what movie we're doing based on the clue from last week, but we are doing the 1992 when it was released in Australia, 1993 when it was released in the United States. Baz Luhrmann, first part of his Red Curtain Trilogy. Couldn't get that one out. Strictly Ballroom. And I have so many feelings about this movie.
Why don't we do an abbreviated summary of the movie?
Okay, because I have so many feelings.
Right, and then we can go into it. So the film is set in the competitive world of ballroom dancing in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
It follows Scott Hastings, a talented dancer who risks his career by daring to break the rigid rules of ballroom dance. Scott's unconventional moves cause a stir in the dance community, leading him to partner with Fran, a beginner dancer with her own unique style. And that is the abbreviated summation.
Yeah, basically. I had never heard of this movie before I had seen it. I think it came on HBO randomly, and I was enamored. So, background. My Nana, who I loved dearly and was one of my favorite people in my family, when she was younger, she was a ballroom dancer. And she loved to dance. And one of my greatest regrets in my life is all of those times where she tried to teach me how to do ballroom dancing. And I poo-pooed and was like, no, I can't do it. Or I was just an awkward teenager and, didn't want to be. I was embarrassed or whatever. I had 1,001 reasons.
That's usually the way it goes.
And it is one of my greatest regrets because I grew up loving watching ballroom dancing. Her and I would watch competitions. I know stupid things like the reason why they don't wear colored shoes, and it elongates the line, the vision of the leg. It gives you the illusion that the leg is longer than what it really is. There's the little things that she would always point out to me. And if somebody wasn't doing something right, she would, this is what they should be doing. And it always I loved it. And I even went through a phase of watching Dancing with the Stars because of my love of ballroom. But even that got to be a bit much for me. But this movie, it brought me joy. And then because I was younger, let's see, 92, 93, let's assume I saw this in 93, 94, right before I moved to California, probably. It would have, because it has that very drawn out but sweet little love story that's in the background. It's not a major part of the plot. I don't feel like it is, but it isn't.
Almost barely there.
Yeah, and because of that little bit, though, I focused on the love story aspect, but looking. Yeah, I don't want to go into my feelings now yet, but this movie brings me joy.
I mean, this is literally the podcast to do the feelings in.
Well, I know, but I like to hold them till the end. My current feelings.
I didn't know anything about this film. You introduced it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And every single time I start out with the same feelings and I end out with different feelings.
Yes.
Every single time. So both times, the time I saw it before this and this time, I always start out in that position of real embarrassment.
It's cheesy.
Because it is camp.
Oh, it is.
It is high camp. Just in that situation where you feel uncomfortable.
It's that camp that you get from Australian and even English comedies.
No, I think even more so, more like The Office type of camp. So English comedy in that way, kind of, yes.
It's got the over-the-top drama.
There's that, it's everything has this intensity to it. It's intense camp is what it is.
Yeah. embraced fully by the character.
But I start out that way. But it always changes for me somewhere from, actually I can tell you where it changes. Okay. And I'll tell you when we get to that point.
Okay.
So starting out, I always feel, and I felt it this time as well as I did the time before, embarrassed.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely.
Like, definitely this camp, and that you get from like a camp you're not familiar with, really. It puts you on edge. Not in a horrible way, not in a bad way. I'm talking about like, it's funny, but it also doesn't make me laugh out loud kind of funny.
Yeah, this is not a laugh out loud moment. I don't. There's moments, but it's not that type of a comedy.
No, I think the comedy is in the way it makes you feel.
The comedy is also in the outrageousness of the people who take themselves seriously.
And in the camera work.
Oh, God, the camera work. Oh, my God.
So, yeah, it's shot in this at first, it's shot in this quasi-documentary style callback where they have these... the FaceTime with
the parents,
the parents, mostly the mother. But then it changes a little bit. And this movie, if you're careful, if you watch it and you're paying attention, it changes over the time of the movie.
Oh,
almost like different people wrote it.
It was, I didn't write down the writers, but I believe it had 3 writers, Baz Luhrmann being one of them. So, before we get into the movie, I need to talk about Mr. Luhrmann here because the movie is...
his friends call him Baz.
Yeah, they do.
I call him Bazzy.
His name's not even Baz. His name is Mark.
Yeah, but we call him Bazzy.
It had something to do with a haircut he had in school, and that reminded them of something, and then he had adopted the name, and it became just Baz.
I thought it was his love of a brand of balloons. The Bazzy balloon.
So this was his first feature film.
Okay.
And like I said before, it was the beginning of the Red Curtain Trilogy. I don't know why I can't say that. So the other 2 movies in the Red Curtain Trilogy are Romeo and Juliet from 1996 and Moulin Rouge in 2001. And now I am the first to tell you I am a Romeo and Juliet classic person. I love the classics of Romeo and Juliet. I appreciate the Baz Luhrmann version for what it is. I mean, dear Lord, the Mercutio, the Queen Mab speech breaks my heart because that man does it with passion. And if you are a Shakespeare nerd like me, that speech is already a big deal. And if it's not done right, it's lost. But he does it beautifully. And I can't think of the actor's name who does it. But in that movie... oh, it's just awe-inspiring. But it's never been a huge... Oh, yeah, also, John Leguizamo is Benvolio. I believe he plays Benvolio.
Excellent job.
My brain is blanking on names right now. But, oh, yeah. He
almost becomes like the star of the film for like a good 20, 30 minutes. And you're
it's
like,
almost
wait a
like,
minute,
you know what?
Was...
I'm watching it and I'm going... I don't give a shit about Romeo and Juliet now. I want his story, and I don't want him to die.
It could have been the guns, but really it was more about way he positioned himself. He really did carry a lot of the weight of those scenes.
Yeah, John Leguizamo likes to put himself 100% into it. And that's the thing about Baz Luhrmann movies. Now, I've not seen every single Baz Luhrmann movie, but I have seen enough to know that every time I do watch his movies, they move me passionately. And it started with Strictly Ballroom. I am a huge fan of Australia. I was disappointed in Faraway Downs when they took Australia and turned it into a miniseries with the deleted scenes. I don't like the ending of Faraway Downs because they made it so sad, and I'm not going to ruin it for everybody who hasn't seen it, but if you know, you know, and I hate it. So I need to go back and watch Australia to get my happy ending.
Fair enough.
But otherwise, it's fantastic. And you can see, so there's going to be some ideas and themes that Baz Luhrmann touches. He literally just kind of glances at in Strictly Ballroom, but he fully fleshes out in Australia. And again, we'll get to that in a minute. And And I love Moulin Rouge, don't get me wrong. It is not my favorite, though. I would have to put Strictly Ballroom in Australia as my 2 favorite Baz Luhrmann movies, even though they are diametrically polar opposites. They make me happy. Both of those movies make me happy in different ways.
Okay.
So, yes, needless to say, I have a passion. So, I don't even know where to even start. Like,
We'll start on the opening scene.
So they're at one of the dance competitions.
Right. And Scott
and his partner Liz.
Who's played by Paul Mercurio.
Yes. And Liz is played by Gia. Oh, God, I can't pronounce her last name. Carides.
Yeah, we're going to say that.
Yeah, we're going to go with that. Funny note, Paul Mercurio plays Scott Hastings.
Right.
And he is no longer, I mean, I don't think he's an actor anymore. He's a dancer. He was actually a ballet dancer. Took this role, had to learn how to do a lot of these dances.
Which you could tell by the way he moved that he was a ballet dancer.
His spins, yes. You can see it. And a lot of this stuff I didn't know until I started doing my research. So a lot of this was very new to me. And rewatching it with that knowledge really changed a lot of...
It's like watching Patrick Swayze dance. You automatically know that they were trained in ballet. And that was their primary because they have... It's the stance. It's the arch of the back.
And it's the
lets you know almost immediately that's a ballet dancer.
The power in the legs, too.
Yeah.
The fact that they can easily lift themselves and do these jumps and leaps with just effortlessly is definitely a ballet a skill there. But what's funny is Mr. Mercutio is currently... he is an Australian Labour Party member, and he is a member of the Victorian Legislative Assembly, and he represents, wait for it, Hastings, which I think is adorably hysterical.
So he is Scott Hastings.
And he represents Hastings. So him and his dance partner...
It's like being a dentist called Crentist. You think he became a dentist because of that?
I used to have a pastor whose last name was Castor. I'm
not
kidding.
Now I think you're making that up.
Yeah, but we didn't call him Pastor. We called him by his first name. But yeah, he was Pastor Castor.
So the opening scene is basically it's setting up the whole premise of the film, which is Scott is dancing these conventional moves, and then he starts changing it.
Yeah, so he gets blocked in. Him and his partner get blocked
by
in.
What you assume are going to be the bad guys.
Ken Railings, and his, I forget what his partner's name is then because she ends up breaking her legs, and cannot dance with him anymore.
In camp fashion,
yes.
She breaks her legs in a spinning...
in a car wreck. But because it's just like right after Liz says, I want Ken Railings to tell me that blah, blah, blah broke both of her legs and can't dance and he wants me to be his dance partner. And it happens like that in the movie. So that's the campiness of a Baz Luhrmann movie.
Well, I want Liz to come like in the second Strictly Ballroom where she comes to terms with her powers.
Oh, yes. So, yeah, they get kind of blocked in. And if you know anything about ballroom dancing, yes, dancers can get blocked in by another dancer. And sometimes it's done accidentally. And honestly, sometimes it is not done accidentally.
So explain what blocked in is for the layman, including me.
Okay, so obviously a dance floor is a giant rectangle. And if while you're dancing, you get pushed into a corner by accident. So you get kind of danced into a corner. And then dancers are in front of you. They can either use that to their advantage by giving you limited space so you won't be able to do anything flamboyant, anything to get the look of the judge.
It limits your movements overall. Yes.
So it's either, and sometimes people get hit by accident. I mean, arms are swinging. Honestly, how there's not more black eyes at a dance competition, I don't know.
So this is a way to limit movement and also to obscure the moves themselves.
It can be. Again, sometimes it's accidental. A lot of times I'm pretty sure it's accidental. But I think in this situation in the movie, it was definitely purposeful that they blocked them in.
So he and his partner get blocked in by the what would be the de facto at this moment bad guys.
Yes, and he he's trying to figure out a way to get, because, in dance, the male leads. So while the woman is more the flamboyant butterfly, with the feathers and her dresses and everything, and she will have more flair moves in most case, especially in the ballroom. And again, I can be 100% wrong, y'all. I'm doing this based on
this is your idea of it.
Memories from my childhood, and I don't remember everything. So if I'm making mistakes about ballroom dancing, please correct us.
Oh, or just say that we're not experts in ballroom dancing,
I am not
so
an expert.
therefore everything we say is opinion.
Yes. So men lead the dance, and so he was leading her out of it. But the only way for him to do it was to go between, and he did I thought was pretty cool, kind of a slidey, spinny thing, and he got out of there, and he got her out, and the audience and the judges were like, oh!
And there was a cutaway to a documentary style, where Liv is talking to the camera and saying, I didn't want to do it. He forced me.
Yes. And she's not wrong. I mean, because
they are doing a build-up. The mom is doing a build-up in the documentary,
and Liz is
FaceTime, saying that what happened, the incident, the thing that happened, what Scott chose to do. So they really built this camp up.
Oh yeah, and the whole thing is that the dance, the championship is called the Pan Pacifics, and it is the be all end all. It is where all the champions they all strive to get to, and his mom wants him to be in the Pan Pacifics and to be the winner of this championship. And it's the finals, but right now they're still in the preliminaries, and they got disqualified, and that obviously upset Liz because she's losing her shit that they're not going to be able to make it to the Pan Pacifics because of his crazy dance moves, and he doesn't understand why everybody's losing their shit because he's like, but it's why I can't do my own dance moves? I don't understand why I can't do this. It should be, I shouldn't be limited to what moves I am taught, and he didn't do anything.
He improvised in the time to get out of the boxing.
But he didn't do anything outrageous. I didn't think he was doing anything outrageous.
But this is that over-the-top camp.
Yes.
The dramatics in which they're all acting like this is the incident that broke the world. Mm-hmm. And it's so soap opera. Yes. And while all of this is happening, while him and Liz are having this argument, you can see that his mom and his dad, but mostly his mom and her friend Les, they run a dance studio. Right. And she's trying to come to terms with what happened. And you see one of the dance students walking around. She's putting rock salt on the ground. It makes the floor less slippy. And honestly, I did not catch that. I thought she was eating cereal. I think it's rock salt. Honestly, again, I could be wrong on that one. Again, I really wish I'd watched this with my Nana. I never got a chance to. I think she would have appreciated the silliness of it. I was trying to figure out. I thought she was eating cereal. No, she was. I think it's rock salt or it's some type of resin. I don't know what it is. I wish I had looked that up. But and it's really to keep you from pee across the floor because those are hardwood floors. Literally looked like a box of cereal. Yeah, that's what it that she was like. Sprinkling on the floor. But she doesn't have a dance partner, and the first comment that anybody makes to her is Shirley, Scott's mom, and she makes a comment about her complexion because they portray Fran in the beginning as having a lot of acne. But they had to paint that on because the actress, Tara Maurice, does not have acne. No, she's quite beautiful. Quite pretty. I mean, acne or not, you can be beautiful. She's got a beautiful face. But she's not... She's not conventionally pretty. She's definitely... Yeah, but for me, conventionally pretty has never been pretty. Oh, no, I like her face. I like her, yeah. Unconventionally pretty women, they always make me, I feel that they are the most beautiful because they don't fit the standard archetype for the quote pretty that everybody says. Oh yeah. And I think that you can be beautiful in so many different ways, and she's beautiful in her own way. Mm-hmm. but when they take a beautiful woman and they ugly her up.
They put glasses on her, frizz up her hair, and paint on pimples.
So basically, they make her human. Mm-hmm. When they make her human by having eyesight that's not perfect and skin that may not be exactly perfect and hair that may not be the greatest because they don't go to a stylist every day.
Yeah.
That, to me, is kind of... It's just so misogynistic.
It is. And there's a lot of things about this movie that I definitely appreciate because as we go through the movie, and while, yes, she does take off her glasses and yes, her skin clears up, but she never goes and gets like one of the hairstyles like the other girls have. And even like at one scene when Shirley is putting makeup on her and she's doing the show makeup, the crazy colors and everything, it doesn't suit her. And so when she performs later on, she's not dressed up like the other girls. She doesn't have the sparkles and so I kind of appreciate
I'm not faulting the production.
No. I'm just saying I do appreciate that they kept Fran kind of natural in her beauty.
But there is some ham-fistedness to the uglying up of a girl.
Oh, I hate that too. But
and again, glasses don't make someone ugly or pretty.
No.
They are functional. They're there so you can see. And she is never seen again with the glasses once it's taken off.
Yeah, once they're taken off, her eyesight miraculous.
But anyway, they're at the event. They're at the
They're at the dance.
They're at the dance studio.
Yes.
And this is a long scene in which there's a lot of things that are happening at the same time. There are some undercurrents of different hierarchies going on. The mother who is the matriarchy. Mm-hmm. You have the father who is a subdued, very quiet.
Doug. Poor
constantly
Doug.
Filming because he is documenting
everything.
And you find out why later on because he never got the chance to do things the way he wanted to do them. So I think he's just wanting to... He's relegated to watching life happen.
Oh, yeah. He definitely is living in his head and living in those reels.
Memories.
His memories.
Yeah.
And it's like he's the keeper of the secrets, too. And then there's Les. And like I said, Les is her dance partner / business partner. And... Les is a sweet guy, but Les is kind of also in the middle of this. But he's just also trying to do what's right, really.
I mean, a lot of what can be seen here in the scene is that everyone follows convention.
Yes.
You don't follow convention, you do not get to play.
Exactly.
And there's only one person who's not following convention. There is another person, Fran. Mm-hmm. Scott is not following convention, and he's being semi-ostracized right now for it.
Yes, and
spoken around instead of to.
Yeah, and again, her Liz and Scott, they just fight, and then she leaves at one point, and then she comes back, and I forget why she comes back. She came back. But she came back
with
a different outfit too.
To see if he would change his mind.
That woman always wears yellow.
And she thought he did change his mind.
Yeah, and she always wears yellow, the most god-awful yellow. But yeah, she thought maybe he would have changed his mind. And so they dance, and it's almost like she's convincing him by dancing with him.
And she says
something about the
steps.
Well,
she says, I knew you would see it my way.
And he's like, well, fuck that, and starts doing the crazy steps. And they're just not that crazy.
And she pearl clutches and loses her mind again.
And then he's like, well, what do you want? And that's when she says, I want, Ken Railings to come in here and tell me that blah, blah, blah broke her legs. So that way, and then I want to be I want you to be my dance partner. And it happens. It flashes to the girl in the car and it rolls off the road. And then it shows Ken running into the building and he's like, so-and-so broke both of her legs and she can't dance. I want you to be my partner. And she's like, well, yes. Big mistake. Ken's a freaking alcoholic asshole. And not to blame people with alcoholism as being assholes, but he personally is an alcoholic asshole. He's just not
He's obviously not handling his alcohol well enough to hide it from the people that work with him or that dance with him.
Oh, gosh, no. And...
he gets worse as time goes on, but I do like the fact that even when he's dancing in the scenes that he's dancing in, you see more and more of a sheen of sweat.
Yes, as you can tell.
As if he is doing the alcohol sweats, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, all I can think is how bad he must feel at that point being that drunk and sweating it out.
And then having to dance through it.
I know.
Yeah, not only is he having to dance drunk, but he's dancing the Latin dances, which have a lot more swirl and movement, especially in the torso area, where, like, if you're going to be doing the straightforward, like, foxtrot and waltz, you're going to keep a stiff body, which less likely. Now, Venetian waltz, you're going to be spinning, so you would probably get a little bit sick. But a lot of those dances, especially the Latin ones, I feel like you're going to get a bit more nauseous, and to have to do that with alcohol sweats is probably not fun.
I don't want to get off the couch if I have that.
I don't think anybody would.
So this all happens in the studio.
Yes.
A lot of scenes happen in this studio.
And so when Liz goes off with Ken, of course, Shirley, the mom, she gets very, very upset about this. And she's trying to keep a stiff upper lip. She's really trying to keep her shit together, but she's losing it fast.
It's about appearances.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot in this film where you see the facade drop when they're no longer in the crowd. And then when they come back in, she's got her face back on.
Oh, yeah. She actually goes off out of the room, and she stands there and she breathes really heavy, and you could see she's broken, and then she comes back in with this smile plastered on her face, and she starts shutting down the studio while Ken and Liz are standing there talking, and then the other dancers, Wayne, and I forget what his girlfriend's name is, but they come over and they start talking to him, and so it's like a lot happening at one time, but then eventually everybody leaves, and Shirley is yelling for Doug, and that's when she starts to cry because she's like, Doug, and he's not hearing her because he's down in the basement watching his movies. He's actually watching the video that he took of Scott at that performance at that competition where he did get disqualified.
Right.
And so she starts crying because Doug isn't coming and everything is just falling apart. So Les gives her a hug, and he's commiserating with her, and then Doug comes up and he looks at them both like, again, and they all kind of go their separate ways, and they leave, and leaving Scott in the studio by himself.
I have to say, as dramatic as this tends to be, I know that from a show standpoint, like in rodeo and things like that, that a lot of this over-the-top dramatics is very real.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's crazy how alike a lot of these the competitive sports or these competitive arts tend to be very dramatic at the time that you're living it.
Oh, I can tell you some stories even just about community theater.
So it's true though. I mean, you have people that are they're performing an art.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they have this very strict definition of what that art entails.
Yes.
And you notice during the entire scene, the only thing they were doing is strictly ballroom. Mm-hmm. There's nothing else.
Nothing else.
Nothing else is allowed. And Scott has been trained by his mother since he was 6 years old.
Yes.
He said that many times.
Yes.
To strictly only do ballroom.
Yeah. And he wants to branch out. He wants to bring in his own movements. And as he starts to dance, watching, with the mirrors, he's trying out different things. Fran is there, and he doesn't realize she's there until she kind of sneaks
She's lurking.
up on him.
She's lurking through the window at first.
And I love it. He goes, how long have you?
The curtain, yeah.
He goes, how long have you been here? Meaning, how long have you been watching? She goes, 2 years.
That was good. I like that. That's
good.
exactly like a literal.
Well, I think honestly,
answer.
out of all of them, she's got a really good grasp of comedy. Her lines are given very quickly. Like, she has a lot of comeback lines that are not delivered in any snarky fashion, but she's just got that. It's a timing. She has that comedic timing.
I don't think she has. I'm trying to think of in the movie if she has any overly dramatic parts.
Not overly dramatic.
I don't think she does. I think of all the people in this film, She is the one character who reacts with normal expressions.
She's very level-headed, but she does and when she gets emotional.
She does, but she doesn't.
But she doesn't
get
go crazy.
Campy emotional.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think she is like the anchor for all of the scenes.
Oh, I agree.
Where she doesn't resort to camp in any of it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I agree and you're going to have to get past the first part of the movie. And what I have found is in the first part of the movie, the camp is so strong that it kind of tries to pull you out of the movie, that you're thinking more about the camp than you are what's being said.
Yes.
And I think that was on purpose, because what I found is this movie is very sneaky.
It's a lot deeper than you realize.
It devolves from camp into a romantic, not a comedy, just a romantic drama. It becomes, and I'm not even talking about the romance between a boy and a girl, or a girl and a girl, or a boy. I'm talking about a romance in and of itself.
Oh, yeah.
Either about the music or the dance itself, not the music, because the music is like
but
everywhere.
There's definitely, regardless of who it is, there's a love of the dance. Even from the bad guy all the way through, there's still a love of the dance.
And it starts devolving out of that camp. I say devolving, that's probably not true. It's evolving.
Evolving.
From camp into this, and it never leaves the camp behind.
No.
The camp is integral
because
to
again,
the film.
if you've ever watched ballroom dancing, and particularly in the 80s and 90s, it was so over the top.
I've got news for you. The Germans, they're still doing the camp dancing. It is very popular.
Yeah, well, I haven't watched ballroom dancing in years, and like I said,
I don't know that it's ballroom dancing, but it is dancing, very competitive.
Oh, okay.
That they do in their off times.
Wow.
It's very strange to me.
I just know that, I watched Dancing with the Stars, and every once in a while I'll see some swing dance competitions, but when I used to watch it with my nana, the costumage was so crazy. Just the feathers and the colors, the color matching. We're just like, oh, did you just throw darts at a color wheel?
So Fran is a beginner.
She is considered a beginner.
She's not just considered. She is uglied up. She is wearing the long T-shirt, very drab. She doesn't move gracefully.
Yes.
She's in the way a lot of the time during the dancing.
She doesn't have a partner.
She doesn't have a partner. She is a beginner in almost all ways. And she offers, because Scott was dumped, she offers to be his partner.
And he's like, who are you? He starts looking down his nose at her like, you are a beginner. I've been doing this since I was 6.
He's outraged that he has... Yeah, he's outraged that he has to even entertain the idea of someone coming up to him, and because he considers himself a professional.
And to a certain degree, because, and I believe in this one on Shirley, he holds himself above. So he sees himself better than almost everybody in that dance studio.
It's the Jeff Winger effect.
Oh, God, yes.
His mother told him he was really great at everything.
So he went through life believing he was great at everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to make a lot of Community.
Oh, I love it. So
references.
So she offers, and he just gives her this stare like, you fucking what? And you can see the moment where she's just like, I made a mistake. And she just turns and she's crying. Now, she's not over dramatic about it. It's a real genuine, fuck you, I shouldn't have said anything. God damn it, why did I open my mouth?
You can tell she's disappointed because she expected him to be different.
Yes, and she's been watching him for 2 years. I have a feeling that she's kind of
in love
crushed
with him.
on him a bit. Yeah. And so he goes...
Or at least maybe...
Yeah, I say crush.
In love with the idea of him. Yes.
And
that's how everyone starts out, the idea.
Yeah. And so he agrees. And he's like, well, let's do, a basic...
She convinces him to give her an hour.
An hour. And, of course, immediately she's, like, stomping on his feet and stuff. But, she has moves. She knows the steps. He works with her. He agrees. But they decide to do it quietly after hours.
Well, it's not just that. He's trying to teach her. He's trying to teach her his style, the ballroom dancing, techniques. Style. But then she
has a couple of steps of her own.
She shows him because he's arguing with her and he's trying to talk over her, much like we saw in the last film we talked about. In which
you weren't listening. Yeah.
In which a man is talking over a woman. He does the same thing, but she just redirects that.
Yes, she just shows him instead of trying to get him to listen.
To his credit, he accepts that and says, "Teach me."
Yeah, he's like that. Those are some fancy steps, and I like them. And there's and the steps that she uses are steps that are common in flamenco and the paso doble. And the paso doble is the dance that they are learning to do for the competition.
So the flamenco is the dance of love. Flamenco is the dance of love.
I don't know if that's what it's called.
And is the other one the dance of like?
No, the paso.
All of those just to get that joke through.
Oh, so. My Lord.
That was a long wait. It really wasn't worth the payoff.
No, it wasn't, was
it? The cat didn't even laugh.
No, he did not. He's here purring away, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so say hi, cat boy. I'll have to I gotta put pictures of him on the
Yeah, everybody needs to see
Everybody needs to see the ragamuffin. Reverend Jim over here, yeah. Jim the cat. So
the thing I like about Scott is that he is arrogant. He has some arrogance to him.
Oh, he's beautiful too. He's a pretty boy.
And he's brash.
He is.
But he is extremely willing to learn without a lot of ego.
He is. And you see that even later on with the dad. So, they're practicing it, but while they're practicing, there's still tryouts going on. And to find him a new dance partner, because he hasn't told his mom yet that he wants to dance with Fran. So he's got to go through the tryouts. And he even tells Fran, I'm still going to go through the tryouts. And the first one, they had a comment about something like a butterfly. I didn't quite catch that one. The second dancer, the sister Kylie, I love her.
She's giving critique.
Yeah, she's like...
And they're following her critique.
Oh, yeah, because she goes, she doesn't have musicality. Where's the musicality? And then the third dancer was a little bit stocky, and I couldn't remember what was said about her, but it was Fran who goes, she's terrible. And everyone looks at Fran because Fran never says anything. She's very shy, very quiet, and she never says anything negative. So the fact that she did... was like, oh shit, And then, of course, it shows the mom later on going, well, this one's not dancing well, and this one's chubby, and it's so there's a little fat phobia there. But she says, he's not happy with any of these dancers. He's never going to have a partner in the dancing, and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile...
Which is funny because they seem like they're giving him a choice.
Yeah.
And they entertain the idea that they're giving him a choice, but later really on, they take that choice away.
Yeah, I think they're hoping that he was going to make a mature choice, but because he didn't make the choices that they thought or they perceived as the mature choice, that they decide to take it upon themselves. And then we get to the first dance where, I think we're in the semifinals now. And which is funny because he keeps getting pushed forward even though... he's been disqualified.
Well, and you see through this whole area, this montage, basically, it's an extended montage of them practicing, and over time, he takes her glasses off and asks her if she can dance without them.
Her skin starts clearing up.
And you never see the glasses again. This is that traditional ugly duckling turning into a swan scenario, but what I think they did well, other than the ham-fistedness of the acne and the glasses.
The frizzy hair.
Well, and the hair to a point. But other than those ham-fisted ideas of what ugly is, I really think this movie did probably one of the most seamless ugly duckling to beautiful swans.
Oh, because it was subtle. It was little changes.
It was very subtle during the montages and during the scenes. You see that she's very slowly becoming more herself.
Oh, yeah.
And more her own person.
And yet she doesn't change who she is, because she doesn't change her wardrobe. She doesn't change...
Yeah, she's still wearing the same...
Her makeup isn't... I mean, she's subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she wears, and like where all the other girls are wearing all these like, over the top sparkle dresses, she's just wearing a regular floral dress to the competition.
And absolutely stunning in it.
Oh, yeah.
In a very simplistic way.
Very. And
probably more so because of all the flamboyance of the others.
Yes. So when they get to the competition now, in between, you've seen, what's his name? Shoot. I can't think of his name now.
Who?
Fife. Barry Fife. I couldn't think of the first name.
Barry.
As Americans, we're not going to recognize a lot of these actors and actresses because, again,
they're Australian.
All Australian. But, well, not all of them. But we are going to, you might recognize Bill Hunter and Barry Otto. So these gentlemen have been in multiple things that, Americans have, we've seen as Americans. I know, my brain.
Like what?
Like Australia and Faraway Downs, because they were both in that.
You have to give the examples, otherwise we're not going to
I'm working on it. I was building up. They were, so Bill Hunter was also the voice of the dentist in Finding Nemo. I
knew him from somewhere.
He was also in Priscilla.
I recognized him.
He was also in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Dentist voice.
So, and Barry Otto has been in a lot of things, but I just picked out Australia and Faraway Downs. They have very recognizable faces, and you watch this movie and you're like, I know them from somewhere, and then you can look them up on IMDb and
got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and again, those are two of the actors. While you may not recognize their names, even their faces you would know, and their voices are very distinct. One thing I do want to point out, which I thought was a bit sad, is the mom, Shirley Hastings. She was played by Pat Thompson. And Pat Thompson, I got two different answers of what happened to her. One said cancer, one said a brain aneurysm. Either way, she died before the premiere.
Oh, of the film itself.
Of the film itself.
Oh,
so she never even got to see the premiere.
That's too bad.
It really is. And again, when you watch the movie, you're going to go, I know her from somewhere too. I didn't recognize any of her other work, but I knew her face. Like I felt like I'd seen her.
A lot of people are like that, where you see them in something and you just know you've seen them in something else, but you can't ever place it.
Well, and as you can see a pattern here, Baz Luhrmann likes to reuse actors. So even Tara, who plays Fran, she was a prostitute in Moulin Rouge, which I didn't realize. Now I want to rewatch Moulin Rouge to find to see if I recognize the prostitute that she is.
She's a singer.
She is a singer.
Yeah.
So when they're doing their montage of dancing, Cyndi Lauper's "Time After Time" is being played, but it's not Cindy's version. It's a cover, and it's done with a man and a woman, and the woman is Tara Maurice singing.
And it's not Cyndi Lauper because she has a distinctive voice.
Oh, she has a very distinctive voice.
It's done well.
Very well. I've never heard it with a male voice singing it as well. So it was nice because it became a duet as opposed to this song of sadness, which Time After Time kind of is a song.
Which makes sense because this scene, it played over their kind of forming
a relationship.
Something more than just dance partners. Because he does say when he takes her home after one of their training nights,
The dance is a dance of love, but it's not real.
Right. We're just pretending. And that kind of stings her.
Yes. And they...
but again, she doesn't overreact to it. She just reacts and, she stumbles away.
Yeah. And so they're at this competition and it's announced that Tina Sparkle, I know that name is the best name. It is such a dancer name though, like Tina.
I don't know. It almost sounds like something that you would, like a pop star.
It's a dancer's name, but not a dancer in the ballroom.
It's a Pink Pony Club kind of dancer way. It's a Pink Pony Club.
Yes. Oh, now that's going to be in my head. Y'all, I can't get that song out of my head. It has been almost a month, and I have been walking around the house singing it, and you can tell because you can ask Beth. I put my own lyrics to it. Poor dog.
They can ask me, but I'm not talking.
Oh, well, I have to sing songs and put my dog's names in the lyrics, and that is one of them. So they want Tina Sparkle, because her partner is retiring, to go to spend more time with his landscaping business, as they like to point out. And so she's going to need a partner.
Which is so it's again,
It's
it really
innocent.
harkens back to the actual reality of competitive sports that are non-professional
Oh,
and
yeah.
competitive arts.
They do, they say that they're, to be the top amateur, and they do put that amateur in there
You
every single
have
time.
day jobs.
Yeah.
Other than Scott and his parents who own
A
a
dance, yeah.
studio.
But dance is not what they live, eat, sleep, and breathe. And so Tina's going to be looking for a partner, and apparently Tina is one of the top dancers. And so they thought, let's put her with Scott. And even though Scott wants to do his own moves, Tina will rein him in. And while that's so, when Fran gets to the competition, so now keep in mind, Fran's dad did not want her to go out because they were having a party at his house, at their house, and she goes away. She tells the grandmother that she was going to help one of her friends move so she could go and help Scott at the competition. And she's there, and his parent, or his mom and Les come running up to her, and they're like, "Oh, have you heard? Or we heard the news," or something like. She's like, "Are
Kind of
you?"
a heartbreaking moment here where
Yeah.
everybody is talking about his new partner
Being
as
Tina Sparkle.
and but Fran thinks they're talking about her.
Yes,
And
even
she's
Scott thinks it for a hot minute.
right, because Scott comes up in the middle of all this and he's like,
We were going to
know?
tell you. We were going to tell you, but we didn't know how you were going to take it.
Right. And you can see her face light up and
Yeah.
you know it's about to come crashing down.
And as soon as the mom says, "Oh, why would I be upset about you dancing with Tina Sparkle?" Fran's face falls, and she's just like, "I'm out of here," and she goes. And he does say, "I don't want to dance with Tina Sparkle. I want to dance with Fran." And they're like, "What? You're crazy." And he goes off and looks for Fran.
In one of the sweetest moments in the entire movie.
And it is one of my favorite songs.
It is one of the best asides in a movie in which no talking is done.
No.
It is just the music, and they're not being really witnessed by anyone at first.
Not at first, yeah.
This is two people. He finds Fran,
They're backstage.
and they're behind a curtain, and they're dancing. They start to dance.
To Doris Day's Perhaps. And she even got a private viewing of this movie because of this.
And it's a very sweet, emotional dance.
And
you
it's
really feel that connection has been established with them.
And now, if you know that song, it's even more heartbreaking in that moment, because the song is basically, "I love you, but you won't tell me how you feel. So, if you can't admit it, maybe perhaps we can get together." There's this back and forth in that song.
Which has been happening.
And that's what's happening. And in that dance, there's this back and forth, but there's more of a connection this time. And they dance so smoothly, like they are literally the only two people in the room, until people are slowly noticing them and gathering around the edges. And Liz comes in, and she gets right up in front, and she's like, "Really? This is what's happening?" And Fran falls. Because the whole reality of people watching them and Liz calling her out, she falls.
Catches her off guard.
Yes. And they all kind of rush to help her, and Tina Sparkle comes in, and they were all like, "Oh my God, Tina, it's been great to see you."
They're trying to hide Fran.
Yes. And Shirley is like, "Go talk to Tina. I'm going to take... I'll deal with Fran." So they pull Fran backstage and are into one of the dressing rooms, and it's Liz and Shirley and the redhead, who I can't remember her name, Wayne's partner, and they are all like, "You're a beginner. Did you really think you could dance with Scott?" And I mean, they just lay into her and make her feel like shit. So
Right, very harsh.
So she leaves. She goes home. Meanwhile, Ken Railings is kind of hovering in the background, paying attention to what's going on. So after the dance and everything, Scott and his family are waiting for Tina to come out so they can make their announcement of whether or not they're going to be dancing together. And Scott's like, I don't want to dance with her. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
And he He takes off.
leaves.
He leaves. And Ken slithers his slimy way, sweaty, slimy way up to Tina, and he's like, you and I, we could be a partners. So,
And now Tina Sparkle is with
Ken Railing, and he's dropped Liz. So now Liz has no partner. Scott goes, he runs after Fran, and he finds her in her
at
backyard.
home. Yeah.
And
in their backyard behind their storefront.
Yeah.
Which sells what?
I don't know. They
Yeah,
never
no
say.
one does. I think it says meats on it and things like that.
I know that they
could be a
cook
deli of some
food.
kind.
I know that while they were filming, an actual health inspector did show up because he thought it was a real storefront and that they were selling stuff, and he wanted to see their papers. So there's that. So he sees her and he's like, I don't want to dance with Tina. I want to dance with you. And she's very upset by this. She's upset by the whole entire thing because she keeps thinking that it's one step forward, two steps back type of a thing. And no, I wasn't making a dance reference right there.
And also she doesn't want her dad to see that he's here.
And I'm going to explain to you, because you had asked me a question while we were watching the movie, and I'll explain it in a minute because I did find the answer to that question.
Awesome.
So
I don't remember the question.
I do.
Awesome.
Dad sees them, and he sees a guy with his daughter. And you can tell that he is very, very protective of his girl. And she says, this is my partner.
And this is a Spanish family, by the way.
Yes. And they are immigrants from Spain. And so he sees Scott. He's like, who the fuck is this dude macking on my baby girl? And he wants him gone. And she's like, no, he's my dance partner. And that's even worse. And Dad's like, you dance? And he's like, well, yeah, I dance. Scott's like, fuck yeah, I dance. And he's like, what do you dance? And he says, the Paso Doble. And he's like, you do the Paso Doble? And the grandmother's like, you do the Paso Doble? And they're like, show us. And he says, no, I'm not going to show you.
They double dog dare him.
They double dog dare him. They triple dog dare him.
They really do.
And he almost stuck his tongue to the light pole.
This is super intense. There were fisticuffs not about to happen at all, but a lot of dancing.
But there's a lot of dancing. And so they go in the backyard to the makeshift stage dance floor.
Yeah, there's a dance floor.
I mean, obviously, because Dad's...
It's a deck.
So they get the music going, and Scott and Fran start dancing, and everybody starts to snicker. Even Grandma Yaya puts her hands over her face. She's like, "Oh, this is horrifying."
And again, in a very camp, exaggerated way.
Yes, and now you have to keep in mind, even with the changes that Scott and Fran are making, they are doing the textbook ballroom dancing rules of a Paso Doble. What you have to consider is that these dances, these Latin dances, have such a deep, rich history behind them. And they're not always performed to that textbook way that a competition is going to expect.
Well, especially an Australian one.
And yes. So Dad is like, you call that a paso? That's not a paso. Da, 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 da. And he calls up.
Well, he makes them dance.
Yes.
And they laugh.
Yes.
And Scott...
he gets pissed.
Gets mad.
I think he cracks a smile once in the movie, and that's when they're dancing later on. Otherwise, he never cracks a smile. Scott's a very serious man. Dad gets up, and he gets all the musicians that are at partying with them, and gets them to do a beautiful paso. And he goes. So what you need to understand is the father is, his name, the actor, is Antonio Vargas. He plays the dad, Rico, and which we never know his name, but his name was in the IMDb.
Yeah, he's credited, so they have to give him something, right?
Now, he has only done 4 movies, this being one of his 4 movies. He is a world-leading flamenco dancer. So this man knows his shit. And he wore all of his own clothing in the movie. So all of the clothes that you see Fran's father wearing, those are all his personal clothes, because the man has a style of those high-waisted, floofy shirts. Oh, he just has a look, okay? And he starts doing the the Paso Doble. And he's amazing, obviously. You know, he's got the steps and the movement. It's beautiful. and Scott wants to learn. And so Beth had asked me while we were watching the movie if her dad could dance, why was she only a beginner level and she couldn't really dance to the same degree? Right. So what I found out, and obviously they don't mention this in the movies, but what I found out in my research is that Dad did not want to teach her because they were immigrants from Spain in Australia, and he didn't want her to deal with the craziness of competition and to be ostracized and treated like shit because of where she came from and who she was. He knew the world was not that the competitive dancing world was not built for her and people like them, and he didn't want her to be a part of it. Meanwhile, she did pick up some of his steps, obviously, because she was showing Scott what she knew. And those were those quick steps that Dad does something very similar to.
So the same reason that Scott's mother didn't want him changing his steps
is the reason why Rico didn't want Fran to learn how to dance at all.
Okay. So that makes more sense on why she had to lie to him about where she was going.
Exactly. And so he agrees. He agrees to teach them. And so enters the montage of them learning how to do the true paso doble from a master. Literally and figuratively.
So during this time that Scott learns about his father...
Yes. So,
because this is all building up after this long montage. It looks like it's cut in such a way as to make you feel like it's almost been days that they've been training together. But it has not. It's probably been an entire night and day.
Probably.
In which her father, Fran's father, and Fran and her grandmother and
the guy on the guitar.
The guy on the guitar and Scott are all there, and they're dancing together, and they are kind of like really making a bond of some kind.
Yes.
But you see that they're becoming almost like a couple because they're carefree and they're...
It's when you see Scott smile.
Right. They're smiling and kind of laughing while they're dancing, which is not something Scott usually does when he dances.
No.
Not something he ever does. So when you see this happening, and then it cuts to...
They're trying to get him...
The parents and the...
Barry
Fife doing their own plans for Scott.
They're, without even consulting him, they're planning his life for him. And so Barry Fife is the basically one of the head judges. He is the chairman of the dance, whatever it is, the ballroom.
Head of the dance committee. I don't know.
I forget what it is. He's got a title. Honestly, I don't remember.
He's something in charge.
Basically. And so he's now telling them that Scott needs to dance with Liz. And if he wants to be able to save face of any form, he needs to dance with Liz at the competition at the Pan Pacific.
That's where I saw him.
What?
I just looked at the thing. So, Bill Hunter was in Muriel's wedding.
Oh, yeah,
that's
Muriel's
how I know him.
Yeah, again, Australian.
And Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, Australian actors. It's an island, much like British actors. There's only so many.
There's 10.
And they're in everything.
They just cycle through everything.
So they're plotting, and I want to say that this is a family-friendly movie. There's one almost sex scene, and that's Barry on top of his wife, mostly fully dressed on both parts, and he's on the phone screaming at somebody, and he rolls off of her, and they use they say shit one time, and they use a derogatory word for gay people another time. And those are the only 3 moments that I could say would knock this out of being a family-friendly movie. Definitely, it earns its PG rating because it's such an innocence.
It's not even because it's not about being edgy. It's about. It's about like anti-conformity in a way.
It really is.
But not really about edgy. It's about just doing things like any normal person wants to do, doing it their way, despite being taught a very specific way. You're doing the same thing. You're just changing it a little bit to fit you.
So There's one thing I feel very remiss that I have not mentioned yet, and it's extremely important because this kind of follows through with Baz Luhrmann and his work, and it started with this movie. Fran tells Scott early on that her father told her, "A life lived in fear is a life half lived." And I've always liked that statement, but also it's a statement that apparently Baz himself loved because he uses it for his production company. When you watch one of the movies, not simply Ballroom, or Strictly Ballroom, but when you see his other movies, it comes up as a banner and it says, "A life half lived is, a life lived in fear is a life half lived." So definitely he has taken that statement to heart.
As a mantra, yeah.
Yes. And the reason, and I don't think I said this early on, the reason why he chose this theme for a movie of ballroom dancing is because his mom was a ballroom dancer and he grew up in dance. So he knew this.
This is a part of his world.
Oh, yeah. And he actually has a little cameo at the Pan Pacifics. He's the dude with the silver dress slung over his shoulder. So if you wanted to look out for Baz Luhrmann, there he is. And because, director cameos are always fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're plotting and they're like, well, we're going to, he's got to dance with Liz or he's out, it's this or nothing. And then so Barry puts the pressure on Les to convince him. And Les is like, I'm trying, whatever. And so Barry goes to Scott.
The dance studio.
Yeah, he goes to the dance studio and he comes and talks.
He spins a yarn.
Oh.
A very dramatic.
It is so dramatic
scene.
with lots of bad Photoshop and and tape on faces because that those faces were pulled back. Everybody in that scene was about.
They're doing a flashback. He's telling the story of Scott's mother and father, and how they went to this competition.
Yes.
And his father was the best dancer in the world.
But he wanted to do his own moves.
Right. And we idolized him, and he took advantage of our love for him and did the steps he wanted to do, and he lost everything. And in the flashbacks, it's very campy. They're not flashbacks.
No, they're just
reenactments.
Yes.
Of just really bad dancing, really.
Oh, no. I mean, it's like, it's not the best stuff. But you get what they were saying.
It's campy on purpose.
That if his dad had just sacrificed his place, that his mother could have won. She could have danced with Les, and they would have won. But he was so determined to take a chance and to be reckless and to dance his own steps, and that's why he's a recluse living in the basement and crazy and da-da-da-da-da. So, of course, it makes Scott go, oh, shit.
Well, he says, the thing I think that got Scott is, Barry says, you need to win this for your father.
For your father.
So now Scott, who despite wanting Fran, is apparently, you don't see it on scene, but apparently allows Sparkles to be part of
Tina
this.
Sparkles. And, Tina Sparkles is with Ken Rayling.
Or, sorry, no,
it's
Liz.
Yeah.
Liz, sorry.
And
lets Liz be a part of his team instead of Fran, and you don't see any of this on scene.
No, but he doesn't tell her until she's already there.
Which is messed up.
Really, though. And, Scott's questionable sometimes. Well,
it's almost like it's almost like time gets rushed. Like they just push a narrative.
And there it is. That's what's happening.
And they're like, well, we don't have time for this discussion. So I have to wonder if maybe that got cut out.
Yeah, I don't know.
For time.
I mean, again, this did not have the biggest of budgets. I didn't really look at how much. And I really am not too sure. But
that is part of the thing that I noticed in this film is that a lot of pieces seem like they were smushed together to make it one scene instead of a couple of scenes. They will take a lot of time for a montage about dancing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to dialogue, oftentimes it's truncated.
It is. And a lot of screaming.
Grasping of pearls. But
the one thing that's one of the common themes, too, through the whole entire thing is that Doug, his dad, keeps trying to, he keeps, can I bend your ear for a minute? Can I bend your ear for a minute, Scott? And there's always a reason why
very
Scott
passively
can't talk to his dad. He's very passive. And he always has a reason, or someone else has an interruption. So there's always a reason why he never gets to talk with Scott. So.
And I have to say, I'm going to just say that I understand this.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that they played his dad very well because, like my first wife, her father had messed up somewhere along the way in life, and he became very passive.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand
People
that
hold it over their head and they become.
Yeah, they really do. And I think that a lot of times they live their lives trying to make other people so happy with them that they lose their selves.
So, that's true. My exes, my in-laws, they were like that too. My ex-father-in-law used to come home blitzed almost every night. We'd go out with his friends, but it was when he put himself through the front windshield of his car. And he didn't get hurt, but boy, did my ex-mother-in-law freaking must have laid into him something. They didn't have children at the time, but he was not the guy that she always told me stories about. The man that I knew was a very quiet man who liked his hot tea in the morning and listening to classic music, but he did not take me as somebody.
I think that when you mess up,
I
think when you mess up in such a profound way. And for him, it was not that.
No,
we'll find that
he did
out.
not. He just was beaten to believe it.
Right. And I think that when people are beaten down so many times, they become that passive person.
And nothing against Shirley, but she takes me as a bit of a shrew. I mean, she's a definite,
Oh, yeah.
She's the one in charge. And she's
very
probably always been the one in charge.
the matriarchy of the family.
Yeah, and I think maybe that was always their dynamic, and I think that's part of why he did what he did. So. Like I said, so again, Scott's going to dance with Liz, and Fran is there, and they have her dancing in the beginners, and she's doing a basic.
She's in the beginners again with another woman.
Yeah,
and because they don't get partners necessarily, they just team up together.
Yeah,
and they dance a very basic dance.
And it's like dun 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 dun.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like it's the high school dance.
Oh yeah. And so he's watching her, and Doug comes up and he's like, "Scott, can I bend your ear a minute?" And of course this was when Shirley's like, "Not now, Doug."
Yeah, it's a very tense situation, and his father says, "I need to talk to you now."
Yes, and he tells him, I never danced in the Pan Pacifics. I let Les dance. Everyone bullied me out of it, so I let Les dance. Your mother wanted to win, so I stepped down. They didn't win, but I had nothing to do with it. And
I didn't get to dance the moves I wanted to dance because they wanted to play it safe and still lost.
Exactly.
And it's not worth playing it safe and losing.
Exactly. And he says something to him that is and it goes back to that line about a life lived in fear, is he says to him, "I was afraid." And Scott does not want to be afraid. And I think that reality of his dad was afraid, so he gave in. And I'm doing the same damn thing.
Right.
And that goes against what she told me about that, that statement. And shit, I am now living a half life, and I don't want to become this.
Yeah.
And
I very much equate with that statement.
Yeah.
If you give in to your fear, you will always be regretting the things you did not say or
Hells
do.
To the yeah. So he runs out, and by that point, Fran's about to leave, and he runs out there, and he's like, "I want to dance with you." And she's like, "What? You were going to dance with Liz?" And he's like, "No, I want you to be my partner." Honestly, girlfriend, I would have punched him in the throat and nutted him, and then I would have said, "You're fucked," and walked away. But Fran is not me.
And her dad, despite being fiery in the beginning,
he's very
supportive. Very accepting and supportive of the entire endeavor at this point. Because I think that montage really kind of solidified for him that she can be a part of something bigger.
Exactly. And so they run in, and she gets her dress, and he gets his little gold beaded jacket. And
probably one of the most dramatic entrances.
oh yes, because keep in mind they were trying to introduce him and Tina, and he runs off, and she's like, Scott, and
it's almost akin to being left at the altar because your dance partner runs away from you. I mean, well, first of all, she's been left there at the entrance. Mm-hmm. They keep calling his name, and he never shows up.
Yeah,
because he's fighting with his parents. And she's screaming.
And she's like a little mini-me version of his mom, too.
But I do get that mortification that she must feel.
Poor Tina. Not Tina. Poor Liz.
Yeah, that she must feel because the spotlights are on her. Oh, everyone's looking at her.
They're on a ramp, that leads into the ballroom itself. And
then he runs past her.
Yeah.
To go get Fran, and she's left there. And as bad as she treated everyone...
You feel bad, yeah.
You feel bad because in this movie, there's only one bad guy.
Yeah,
and he's not any of the dancers.
No, he's not.
He's an older dancer, and he's up on the stage. So the bad guys are not part of the dancing crew. Mm-hmm. Even the drunk guy is not a bad guy. He's just
manipulative, but he's not a bad guy.
He's the patsy.
Yeah. So while all of this is happening, Wayne and his partner have been trying to do this pogo, whatever it is, the ogo.
Ogo pogo.
Yeah, it's this dance move that he has been trying to get somebody to fucking show him how to do. And the one time he gets somebody to show him how to do it, it was Barry Fife, and it was really perverted, and it was really gross.
He did it to his partner.
Yeah. But he was trying to find him to get a little bit of is it on the first or the one or the whatever? And they overhear him talking to his wife, or was he talking to...
No, he was talking to Ken and...
Oh, yes, he was talking to Ken and Tina.
And Tina, yes.
And he was basically telling them that regardless of how drunk Ken is, they are the ones who are going to win no matter
this
what.
Is a lock.
He was setting it up as they were going to win. He was totally...
Right.
Regardless. And he's like, I can barely walk out there. Ken's like drunk again. And Barry's telling him, don't worry, you're going to win. You got this. So... Wayne overhears this, and he runs out and tells Les.
Right.
And Les goes up to confront Barry. And at that moment is when when Scott and Fran come out on the stage.
Scott comes out in a slide.
Oh, yeah, like a 15-foot long slide of him turning around, and then he tucks his toes underneath of him. He's in a kneeling position, mind you, and just stands up without using his hands. And as somebody who can barely get off the floor without looking like a toddler, that is always impressive to me.
I need an assistant.
I need like furniture. Like I said, I look like a toddler. When babies are first learning how to stand up and their butts are in the air and they're like grabbing, that's me.
If I get down on the floor for something, I'm trying to hit my alert bracelet I don't have.
I mean, if I get down on the floor, I know I'm down there for a while, okay? It's happening.
But yeah, he stands right up, and then he and Fran start dancing.
Yes, and they start doing the
lambada.
The true forbidden dance. No. God damn it. He starts doing the true paso doble.
Which is the actual Spanish version that he learned from her father.
And so obviously that's against the rules.
And they're dressed that way as well.
They've got a very classic.
Fashion.
She's got the red dress that drapes down lower in the back with all the red ruffles. It's beautiful.
And he has the short jacket, which is a bolero.
Yes. But what's funny, if you look at if you look on the emojis on your iPhone, I believe the girl dancing looks like that. That's the dress. I could be wrong, but I have that in my head.
The red dress? Yeah,
mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah. And that's what they're dressed like. And so...
I've used that icon or that emoji for I'm going to dance on your grave.
Oh, good. Okay,
yeah,
that works.
Several times.
I hate a red dress, too. So,
I know. Pretty.
Yeah. So they start dancing, and Barry loses his shit. And he's like, nope. And he gets his wife to go and unplug the music.
Which is apparently just
one plug.
One big plug in the wall, separate from everything else.
And the music stops, and Barry's like...
A lot of this stuff is very cartoonish in a lot of ways.
He's like, well, Scott Hastings and partner, please leave the dance floor. You are disqualified. Scott Hastings and partner, da-da-da. And they're not doing anything.
Well,
and
they separate.
They separate. They finally do.
Back away, and then they bow.
Yes. And then you hear
It's
the clap.
It's the slow clap from his father.
Yeah. And it's very shaky because they do a close-up and his hands are like trembling.
I think they was trying to evoke
his nerves, maybe.
No emotion.
Maybe
because
emotion.
his father hasn't shown a lot of emotion.
That's true.
He's been very,
stoic. Yeah,
very stoic, very meek. Really, is more stoic, more meek than stoic.
That's true.
And he's very emotionally overwrought because his son is doing what he always dreamed of doing.
Exactly.
And you could get that from the emotion that his face was showing as he walks out of the crowd to where he can see Scott and Scott can see him, that he knows his father's supporting him.
Yes.
And he's providing a beat, not a rhythm.
No, because it's got this voiceover and it's Yaya and she says, follow the rhythm or feel the rhythm. And you're like, that's not a rhythm. That's a tempo or a beat, but that is not a rhythm.
She's calling back to when she first started helping teach Scott to dance, where she tapped on his chest with her palm, teaching him rhythm, because white people
ain't got no rhythm. And so they look at each other and they're like, well, then Yaya and Rico, they also start joining in with the clapping, and then the whole audience starts joining in.
Completely off note with each other. They were not on beat at all.
But then you can hear somebody going, I
think that was his.
That was
grandmother.
That was Rico. Well, it was Rico, and I don't know if the grandmother did that, but you can hear.
I think they both were doing.
I think they were. So you hear that, and then Scott starts doing the steps with it, and again, it's the paso, and
they start dancing.
Beautiful dance
to the
clapping, and you see little mischievous Kylie knock. The wife's name is Charm.
No, I did not know that.
Her name was
I didn't
Charm.
know she had a name.
I didn't know it either till the IMDb stuff.
I thought it was, quote, wife.
He says her name at one point, but you don't hear it. I thought it was Char. But, that would be short for Charlene or something like that. But Charm. Yeah. Okay. But,
so a lot of dancers here, and all of them at the Pink Pony Club.
Oh, my Lord. So Kylie gets the plug away from her, but actually no, she tries to, but then Liz
steps up,
grabs it from her. I think she knocks her down, and Liz plugs it in because she's at this point realizing maybe that Scott's not wrong, and you know what, let him have his moment.
Well, I think she also too knows the fix was in, so she's kind of trying to get back.
At this point, a lot of people are in on that they were going to all lose, and that it was going to be Ken and Tina Sparkle.
But I think that moment where Scott and Fran are dancing to just the claps had so much impact.
Oh yeah,
and I think that was an excellent use of your emotional state at that point, because you've had music all this time, and every time there's been dancing, there's been music.
Yes.
But then that stark quiet.
Oh yeah, and all you hear is the clapping and their taps on the floor.
It really plays on your emotional state, because you're already kind of amped up at this moment, because this is where the conflict gets resolved, right? So you're waiting for that, and they dance in basically utter silence.
They do.
And they are just doing it by feel.
And that's beautiful of it in itself. There's the passion of the dance right there. That the music is not so much ancillary, but it is definitely, it's not what holds the dance together. It is, but it isn't.
Well, the music is the river, but the dance is the boat.
Yeah, that makes sense. So she plugs it in. The music picks up right on the right beat too, and they finish their dance, and it's beautiful. And I love when they do that synchronized step run across and it looks like they're floating. That has always been my favorite move in every ballroom.
Yeah, and that really spikes your emotional state, because right at that point you kind of want to go yes,
because they are so in tune at that moment,
and they're moving with that motion.
Oh yeah,
it's almost like a ghost gliding at you, and the camera work on all of this has always been very close up, very dramatic. So it's always very starkly positioned in the center of the face or something like that. But when they're doing dancing, it's always further back. And in this case, it goes midway.
Yes.
And it follows them.
It does.
And you're like, it really brings that out in you, and it makes you want to cheer for them because they're doing that one move as the music starts again.
And it's crescendoing.
Right.
So you're getting this heightened emotional moment, and then their dance, it finishes, and everyone is just like, wow.
And that's what I'm saying about this movie is very sneaky because it's a camp comedy. It is a romantic comedy drama, and putting drama in there is only because they scream a lot.
Yeah, they do have a lot of,
And there's these emotional peaks of Scott's. But it sneaks up on you because the romantic part wasn't in there at all. No. And then you find yourself wanting these two to be together. This is not like in Tremors where you're like, I could have not had that.
Yeah, no.
You want this to be true. You want them to be in love because they dance with love for each other.
Exactly.
And it's much like any kind of mating ritual you see in animals and stuff. You want this to be true, and you want it to last.
Yeah, you want them to go off and to have their dance studio and.
But it was camp.
Oh
it
no,
was campy.
Utterly.
I mean, it was the first part of this was almost hairspray, and now you've ended up with a love story. You've ended up with at the end of while you were sleeping, or you've got mail. It's not sad. It's meek. Yeah. There's a meek love, and it's like an honest love.
Yeah, because it's definitely, because again, he's like telling her, we're not going to fall in love. This is not what this is really about. We're just here for the dance. And you can tell that she has feelings, and you can tell he's starting to develop feelings, but you don't know how far. And even at the end, you still don't know how far.
But you shouldn't know.
And that's the beauty of the ending of this movie. So basically, they call Barry out of what he was trying to do. Everyone is happy with the Paso Doble.
Standing ovations.
Standing ovations. People are they're loving it. The bad guys are basically getting their reality check, but nobody's like getting arrested or anything. But again,
it's just standard comeuppance for a movie that doesn't really include competition.
Exactly. And then the best part of this movie is, so the song Love is in the Air starts playing, and Doug goes over to Shirley and asks her to dance. And then you see other people kind of branching off into couples as they all start dancing.
Right.
And even Kylie and her little dance partner, they start dancing. And then Scott and Fran, they do kiss. Is it over the top romantic kiss? No, it's a sweet
kiss. It's not something that you're, no one's taking the drone shot.
No.
Or the crane shot and pulling away as they kiss. They're not flying up into the sky.
Because then they start dancing with everybody else.
Right. This is a simple and what feels like a simple, pure love between two people who are dancing. They've won. They're happy about it, but they also really like each other.
But that's the thing, and that's the beauty of it. Nobody wins. Like, they got to do their dance.
No, they win by completing their dance.
You don't know who won this competition, the Pan Pacific. You don't know who won the world champion of blah 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 blah.
Yeah, because it was never about the competition.
It was never about the competition. It was about the dance. It was about being able to be free, to be able to do what was right for you. So here's a fun thing about this movie is that the themes, as simple and as silly as this movie is, there are a lot of deeper themes. A lot of deeper things that I didn't even understand when I saw this the first 1,000 times, because I was looking for, this is my go-to happy feels movie. When I am utterly stressed or if I happen to see that it's coming on, oh shit, we're watching it. You know, when we used to have cable and it'd be like, oh, look, it's Strictly Ballroom's on, we're going to watch it. If I need a movie to put me in a good place, this is my movie to go to because it makes me happy. It brings a lot of good memories of me and my grandmother. It also just puts me in my happy place.
Let me be honest with you here. I never look forward to watching Strictly Ballroom.
Oh, I don't.
Never.
I don't blame you.
I never do. And every single time, I'm surprised by how much I end up getting into it and enjoying it. Every time. It's a movie that surprises me every time with the fact that I have the buy-in. Like, why am I buying into this movie? It's campy, and I'm never looking forward to watching it. I never am.
I get that. But
But then at the end, I'm always glad I watched it, and then that'll fade eventually, and I'll get back to that point where I'm like, I don't want to watch this. But then it's just so weird that it's got that effect on me.
yeah, and that's and I feel like that's the magic of this movie is you don't think about these characters outside of this movie. You're not going to sit there and have deep thoughts other than our podcast on whether or not, you know, Fran goes on into dance and what's going to happen.
But the movie is itself an ugly duckling.
It really is.
Because it starts out and you don't really want to watch it. But then at the end, you're like, this is beautiful. How did this get beautiful? How did this happen?
Exactly.
And then you're back to that point again where this is the ugly duckling.
Exactly. So according to the website SBS Movie, they do a thing called the Strictly Ballroom cheat sheet. And really it just goes into a lot of the interviews and a lot of the deeper themes of Strictly Ballroom. And one of the comments that I thought was really amazingly thought out, and I had not thought much about this at all, is the multiculturalism that is this story. So you have, and literally while we were watching it, I was thinking to myself, you know, there's not a lot of diversity. There's no people of color. You're in Australia. There are no Aboriginal people, you know, but then it's like, oh, but wait a minute. Not saying people of color, but here we have Fran and her family, and they're from Spain, and they're immigrants too. And the problem of being an immigrant in a country, regardless of the country, there's always a stigma, and which is horrifying and goes against a lot of what other people believe.
Just crazy, because the strength and the bravery that it takes to immigrate anywhere into another country and become part of that community, that takes so much strength and just a lot of effort.
Yes. So I'm going to read this part to you. It's a couple of sentences. Well, it's a few sentences, but I feel like this is really important. And again, this is from the SBS Movie website. It says, Fran comes from a Spanish-speaking immigrant background, and this difference implicitly contributes to her exclusion from the white ballroom dancing community. The background proves crucial to the second half of the film, with Scott and Fran learning the real version of the traditional Spanish paso doble dance as opposed to the milquetoast Strictly Ballroom version from Fran's father, Rico. So, it's a Spanish kind of dance, expressionistic, emotional, free, that sets them apart from their peers and competitors in the film's finale. Generously, this can be read as an advocacy of Australian multiculturalism, pointing to a future where white supremacy, as embodied by Barry Fife, who reminds me of who? Who does that remind you of?
I know, right?
Is overthrown.
A certain orange dictator?
Is overthrown in favor of a collaboration, acceptance, and originality. That certainly seems to be Luhrmann's intent, per his comments from another interview that he did. Quote unquote, the Anglo world took the paso doble, which is a dance of expression, and put a whole lot of rules on it and made it about winning. Whereas in Fran's family, dancing is a tradition, it comes from life, and it is an expression of life. So indeed, the story of Fran and her family and her cultural heritage is secondary to Scott's journey through Strictly Ballroom. Scott's success in regaining the respect of the ballroom community, if not necessarily the Pan Pacific Championship, is thanks to what he has learned from Spanish dance. Yet it's his story, the story of white Australia, that is privileged in the film. Strictly Ballroom's version of Australia, multiculturalism, is appropriative rather than utopian, and thus it's perhaps the most realistic element in this fantastical film. But really, though, I mean, how can you not? I mean, you have to see that is just like the deeper aspects that you just don't realize that's how deep.
Well, when you first meet her father,
yes,
you get the sense that this is going to be a very stereotypical family in which he's angry, he doesn't want her out. Mm-hmm. You know, he's very protective, but what you end up finding out is that is not actually the case.
And that he's protective in a sexist way.
Right. You get the idea that this is going to be a stereotype or a trope of the genre. But what you end up finding out is he's actually fairly accepting.
Yes.
He is protective of his daughter because they are not from this place, and that he knows the inequity.
Yes.
So when he finds someone who is accepting, he accepts them. He makes Scott prove himself by being open. Not his dancing. He does. I don't think his dad actually cares about the dancing part. I think what he cares about,
being honest with who he is.
Yeah, that he was open to listening to his words.
And he was. He didn't shut down. He didn't go, well, in the rules. No, he said, oh shit, there's more?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I want to learn the more. I need to know this, and I'm going to learn it from you because obviously you are the master here.
He's brash, not stupid.
Yes. And so, again, this movie, guys, it makes my heart happy.
It has a lot of layers for what should be, and this is something we're finding out with a lot of movies that I thought were simple back in the day.
Yeah.
Like Tremors was simple. A lot of these movies are simple on the surface, but if you delve into them, and I mean, we're just talking even emotionally complex.
Oh, yeah.
That there's more to the film, especially because you know that the people that produced them, the people that directed them, that wrote the movies, intend so much for these films to speak for them.
Exactly.
And they want there to be a message. I think when you find a movie that doesn't have a message, that doesn't have that pulse beneath it, that it's not going to be a movie you're going to like. It's not going to be something that's worth your time. It has to emotionally drive you somehow.
Oh, yeah.
This movie, despite and
it's fast paced.
Not in spite of and not in spite of the camp, but because of the camp, pushes you forward in this emotive state where you're like, I don't know if I hate this or love this at the start. And then that ugly duckling syndrome gets you and you start loving this movie.
I see, and I feel like that's also, and again, I have not seen all of Baz Luhrmann's movies. Because honestly, I just learned about a few movies that he's done and I didn't realize he had done them. And no offense, y'all, but I have no interest in seeing his movie that he did for Elvis. I don't care. I feel like a lot of his movies, though, he does that. Like, it starts out where in the beginning you're like, do I really give a shit about these people? And then all of a sudden, like, so with the multiculturalism, like I said, he touches on it here. And it's subtle, because again, her family, while they are from Spain, she can pass.
Pure white.
Yeah, she passes.
Yes.
So there's definitely, it's not as obvious of a stretch. But in the movie Australia, it is definitely the classes and the fighting of the white people of Australia and the Aboriginal people and the way the Aboriginal people were treated. Now, there's more to the story than that, but that is the huge chunk of it. And it's during World War II, so you get the orphans, the children that were taken, the Aboriginal children who are, So there's
that's something we can talk about when we do eventually
that will have to be
see Australia.
And that will have to be a two-parter, because first the movie itself is long and there's so much. But I think that is definitely a trait of his, that where you just almost like, because her Nicole Kidman's character, she's kind of unlikable in the beginning because she's that literally English rose.
Privilege is a hard thing to get past.
Very
and sometimes
privileged.
you have to find your path out of privilege, and you don't always get it by giving up privilege. What you get is an understanding that you have it. Mm-hmm. Once you understand you have privilege, then you understand what your motivations are for the things you do, and how it affects the people around you.
And I think, and again, we'll talk about that when we talk about Australia, but that's what it starts out with, is her having that privilege.
But that's here too. She didn't have the privilege of
they treated
being
her poorly.
Australian, so she had to moderate how she reacted to things. But she did have passing white privilege, so she could get away with a lot more.
Exactly.
So how do you feel now about this film, watching it today rather than a couple of weeks ago?
Actually, I hadn't. It's been
a couple of years.
I would say at least a year since I've seen this. Yeah. I watch it at least once a year. I still feel the same. I mean, honestly, I think I love it more right now, knowing from my research what I know and knowing that the movie goes even deeper than my years of watching it even noticed. It opened my eyes to what the messages were. And even like, not to constantly throw every episode into modern politics, but when you look at what's going on now and the way people are treated, and if you pass, then no one's going to leave you, no one's going to bother you, right? Because, you know, if you pass as, you know, white, cishet norm, then, you know, neurotypical, then everyone's going to sit there, pat you on the head and give you what you need. It's going to fall apart, y'all, just letting you know. But it's the same message, and the fact that that's kind of what we're seeing now. And I think I appreciate this more now. And again, my heart this movie is a part of me. Again, it's my Nana. I still feel the same, if not more, in love with this movie.
I think the beauty of the movie, not that I'm trying to review it, is that you see what you want to see in it.
Oh, I agree.
Because beauty is subjective. Mm-hmm. And I think much like like I've said, the ugly duckling scenario is that you find the beauty in it in your own way. Whether it's you love the dancing, you love the camp, you love the romance that tends to arrive sneakily through the back door.
The little bit of comedy, there's different.
Right. You'll find something that you love about it, I think. Or you'll just learn to hate it, I guess. But you'll hate it with a fervor. And it won't be, nothing about this movie is meek except for the love that's shown by the characters. There's a true kind of, that's the kind of romance I love, an understated kind of true, deep romance instead of a flighty, loud romance. Mm-hmm. And I really love that aspect of it. At the end, you're left unaware of how this is going to go, because it should be, because it's an ongoing life.
There's a reason why this movie got a standing ovation at the Cannes Film Festival. So.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it was immediately bought by somebody for $1 million to, I think you said $1 million, could have been more, but to have it shown in the UK.
Okay, that's fantastic.
I mean, from that performance. So yeah, it's a good movie, y'all.
So will this movie pass the Castellini test?
I think it will.
Well, let's find out. There have to be at least 2 named women characters with at least 5 lines of dialogue each.
We've got Fran, we have Shirley, we have Liz, we have Tina, who doesn't say much, but she does have...
Do they have 5 lines of dialogue
At least 5 lines.
I agree with you there. Those characters must have a conversation, not necessarily with the other woman, either not about their partner or with their partner, future or current, and not about their relationship.
Amen, yes. Shirley talks with... she talks with Fran, she talks with Liz, she talks with Scott, she talks with Doug, she talks with Les, she talks with Barry. And none of them were about relationships. It was about dance partners. And Fran talks with Scott, and she talks with her dad, and she talks with
Scott's mom.
And she talks, well, that's pretty much it. But she has more than 5 lines of dialogue.
And they're not about relationships.
And they are not about relationships.
It's very... I don't even think they really touch too deeply on the relationship. Nobody talks about
relationships, except for her and Scott when he mentions about falling in love, and when he says that the dance is about love. But even the little girl Kylie, she's got some lines in there, and she's a named character. So yeah, definitely.
At least one of the women has to be integral to the plot, meaning that if she were written out of the film, it couldn't reach the same ending.
If you took Shirley out of the plot,
that's the one.
It would not happen. Even Fran,
Yeah.
would not happen. But definitely, if Shirley was out of there, what would be the point of the movie?
I was prepared to come with that argument if you were going to say Fran.
No, it's
I was going to
Shirley.
say, without
I mean,
Shirley.
Fran is integral, but Shirley.
She is, but Shirley is what drives the movie.
Yes, yes.
She is a force, even if she is misguided.
Definitely.
She reminds me of my mom.
It's what I said to you during we were watching. Shirley has a bit more, I feel, I mean, maybe because when I met your mom later in life, and maybe she didn't have the aggression that Shirley has, but your mom is very much, it's my way or the highway, and it's hard to convince her, and this is for good and bad. So you mentioned you like something, you were getting it, and you were going to like it. I mentioned I needed a laptop for work, and I liked the little tablet laptop she had. It was a little tiny thing.
She got her what?
That day. And I was like, I am never mentioning anything I like in front of your
Now
mom.
you're afraid, right?
I know, because she would buy me stuff. And I was like, I would feel so bad because that's not what my intention was.
So, and
I miss her. She was awesome.
As much as I love my mother, so when I say this, I want you to understand that this is a woman's love for her mother. Mm-hmm. But it's true. And I think anyone who knew my mother would tell you, she's a force of nature.
Oh my God, Judy was a force of nature. Yes.
So, as a force of nature is how you have to look at the lens of Shirley. Mm-hmm. She isn't mean. She isn't evil.
No.
She is driven, and she is a tidal wave who does not care about good or bad. She cares about the wave.
Well, and if you think about it, what she says to Doug, when they're all talking to Scott about the Pan Pacific and about how he gave up his position, she said, we had to switch you out because we wouldn't have even been able to teach if we had lost. If you had danced your steps, we would not have even been allowed to have a dance studio. So she is definitely that force of nature. And and if you notice, the judges were mostly men. And the ones making the calls were mostly men. And she is this hard and strong woman because if you look at Charm and you look at all of the other...
They're passive.
Tina and Liz, now as aggressive as Liz is, she's still passive in letting them decide who her partner is.
She's not leading.
No.
Shirley is the force of nature.
Yes.
And she is what drives the entire show. The entire thing is driven by Shirley's drive.
So without her,
Scott got his drive, got his obstinance, not from his father.
Nope.
He got it from his mother.
He got it from his mother.
So I agree. The Castellini test, and even if you take all three of those rules and put them to the side and just use your objective idea of what feminism is, while there are definitely cases for misogyny within.
Oh, yes.
Because the dance itself...
Oh, yeah.
is inherently there's misogyny within the competition.
Oh, yeah.
If you take those aside and you just look at the film objectively, this is very much a feminist film because it takes all aspects of things outside a white cishet man's world. Mm-hmm. And you have the Spanish influence that is there. They didn't just hire someone to play Spanish people.
They hired a Spanish actor. I mean...
a world-renowned
Antonio,
dancer.
Yeah, Vargas. Yeah, he's... Yeah.
They did the job right. They did the right thing with a lot of things in this film. So yes, it passes the Castellini test for feminism because it is inclusive of a lot of things.
And he's worked on this for a long time. Heteronormative, because unfortunately at one point when Barry is getting called out, he calls Les the F word, gay slur that I'm not going to use right now.
But he is the bad guy, so no one else mentions that.
No one even says anything about Barry being gay.
Right.
You don't even know it until that moment.
You don't know it, though he does kind of act effeminate in some ways. He's not ostracized for it.
No.
But this is the world of dance
Straight man
where
couldn't pull off that hair.
where it may be more acceptable. But there's no stigma applied to it.
No.
And with him saying it, he says it in a fit of anger, and he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of accenting the fact that he is a bad guy. Mm-hmm. So you have that.
Yeah. It's such a... I don't know. And it's so funny because I really think I really wish I had watched this with Nana, because I remember watching like in living color when the Fly Girls would come out, and my Nana would say, "That's not dancing, that's just jumping around." So I know she would have appreciated this movie so much. I'm so pissed I never watched it with her.
So that was Strictly Ballroom, a 1992 romantic comedy drama. It passes the Castellini test, which is surprising for me.
It really does, and it makes me happy.
We are glad that you came with us on this very deep look at something that might have been a shallow film, but is surprisingly deep, despite the surface. Music is a river, dance was the boat. I like that saying. I'm going to put it on a shirt. But this has been Once More with Feelings with Beth and Michelle. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky at OMWFPod. Visit our page at oncemorewithfeelings.podbean.com. Or you can send us an email at omwfpod@gmail.com. Please take a moment to subscribe and rate us on iTunes and on YouTube.
If you want to watch Strictly Ballroom, you can watch it on Fubo TV with a subscription. You can watch it on Amazon Prime, YouTube, Google, Apple TV, and Fandango at home to rent between $3.79 and $3.99. I'm going to give you your hint for next episode. I'm going to do it a little bit differently. Eventually I'll get the right rhythm of this one. But here are 3 little facts about this upcoming film. It is an 80s movie. That's not the fact. Well, I mean, it's a fact, but that's not one of my 3 facts. Okay, so this was filmed in the same location as the movies Goonies and Kindergarten Cop. Its main character, and I'm not going to fat shame, but the main character does weigh 250 pounds. And also, the main character shares sound effects with the same sound effects used for the Ghostbusters proton packs. And I have a quote. This character is known for saying one thing. This isn't its catchphrase, but it does say this one thing. Treads don't fail me now. So, if you can figure out what that is, drop us a line.
Rocky IV.
No.
Oh, I was so close. I know I'm close.
Apollo Creed.
Apollo Creed. That's probably a good one there, too.
I don't even know.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Until next time. Bye.
To live with fear is like to half live. I mean, is a life half lived.
Oh, yeah? Like a proverb?
Yeah, sort of.
A life half lived. I like it.